Hey guys, welcome into the Shelby County High School Football Show. My name is Alec Etheridge, as always, the sports editor here at the Shelby County Reporter. And what a fantastic week of high school football that we had in the county this past Friday night. Not quite the 3 top 10 matchups we had the week before, but still plenty of storylines. You'll hear a lot about Thompson in this show simply because they're playing some of the best football in the state right now. And when you're putting up the kind of numbers they are, it's very warranted to give them their due respect and talk about them a good bit. That being said, there were several other big storylines from this past week. You know, Pelham getting a big win, Spain Park going into double overtime in a loss to Mountain Brook, and then also Briarwood remaining undefeated. And a couple other storylines we'll get to. We'll talk about all of our teams, look ahead to the matchups we have coming up this Friday night. A few teams on by, a couple of them that really need it after the last few weeks where they've lost 2 straight. So we've got a lot of storylines to get to. We'll go ahead and dive in here in just a minute. But what you can expect in this episode, we'll recap all of this past Friday's action as well as look ahead. And at the end, we'll name our next our SCR Star of the Week from this past Friday night. And there's one guy, he just keeps doing it, and it's becoming unfair at this point, but what he did this past Friday night, you can't ignore. I will name a lot of different players, though, just to give them a shout-out, and they really impressed me as well. So a lot of great talent on the field this past Friday night, a lot of great games. We've got a lot to recap, so we'll go ahead and dive in right now. So we're a little bit hard-pressed to find a game of the week this week simply because we're at the midway mark of the 2017 high school football season. When you get to week 6, no region games are going on. A lot of teams are going to be playing out of classification, out of region games this week. So it doesn't mean there's not a lot of good games around, but our only in-county matchup is going to be Thompson hosting Pelham this Friday night. And should be a very entertaining game from the standpoint of the improvement that Pelham's made so far this year. They pick up a big 36-23 region win over Chelsea this past Friday night, improved to 2-1 in region play, win back-to-back games for the first time since 2013, and above 500 on the season, getting to 3-2. So Pelham is making a strong improvement right now, but this Thompson Warriors team has just been one of the best in the state to watch. This past Friday night at the Oak Mountain game, it was amazing. I got there to do the Facebook Live video before the game, and the media is just everywhere. The fans are there. There was a lot of excitement in the building simply because it was going to be one of Oak Mountain's biggest games of the season, and it was close to being a top 10 matchup. So a fantastic scene out there. Thompson just showed why they are one of the best teams. They just sliced right through the Oak Mountain defense. They got 500 plus yards of offense yet again, and they've done that in every game this season, I believe, or at least 3 in a row. So unbelievable to see what they're doing offensively. They pick up a big 49-14 win in that game. It's just, right now they are playing better football than any team in the state. They can't get carried away with that, but to see what Talia Tagovailoa is doing at the quarterback position, 1,304 yards, 12 touchdowns through 4 games right now. That's an unbelievable deal. He's averaging over 300 yards per game and 3 touchdowns per game, which is just ridiculous. And it helps when he's got an offensive line that's blocking as well as they are, and he's got receivers like Mo Edwards, who's got 400-plus yards, leads the team with 6 touchdowns, and is averaging 25 yards per catch. And then you've also got his cousin, Ahmad Edwards, leading the team, 682 yards on the season through 4 games. That's close to an average of 200 yards per game. So he's having an unbelievable season, coming off a performance where he had 228 yards and a touchdown this past Friday night against Oak Mountain. And then you got the running backs, Shadrick Bird, Joseph Forge. You've got the defense, Jalen Raim, KJ Robertson, Josh Hunter, and Miles Brown in the secondary. It's just unbelievable what they're putting on the field right now, averaging 506 yards per game. And 42 points per game as well. Defensively, 30-plus tackles for loss and 6 interceptions so far on the season. You've all seen everything we've posted the last few days on the Facebook pages and Twitter accounts. Just unbelievable what they're doing. That being said, Pelham also unbelievable what they're doing this year. I still thought they were somewhat a year away from a really strong season, but right now they're playing so well, in my opinion. They could easily be 5-0 on the season at this point, just simply because their 2 losses came in the final 2 minutes by 7 points. So could have beaten Homewood easily, also could have won another big matchup a couple weeks back as well. So both these teams, big time on the rise, and it should be a very entertaining game to see what they can put on the field this Friday night. I know that Pelham being a classification lower and is outmatched pretty heavily when it comes to athleticism and talent on the field. But they've got some great guys on offense. I've been really impressed with the way a lot of these guys have been playing and the improvement that Matthew Rye has shown at the quarterback position. I know he got injured this past Friday night. Hopefully he's okay. I know their backup, Xavier Langford's got a great arm and strong poise too. So very entertaining game this Friday night for those two, a big rivalry. It should be a lot of fun. I've spent a lot of time talking about them just because both teams have impressed me so much so far this season, and I'm just excited to get to see them play. Hope you guys will, you Pelham fans and Thompson fans will be out for a good showing on Friday night. I know you will, but it's going to be a lot of fun. Can't wait to see you there. So we have two teams on bye this week, and it couldn't come at a better time for either. Both have lost 2 straight games, and that's going to be Oak Mountain and Spain Park. And Oak Mountain 2 weeks in a row, they lose 7-0 to Vestavia, game they really should have won. They had their chances and fell in that one. They really had a chance to tie the game late, fumble the ball. That's a game they should have won. It could play a big factor when it comes to the postseason down the line as well. And then this past week, a tough 49-14 loss to Thompson. And you can't really fault their defense. They were on the field a lot of the game, and Thompson's offense is the best in the state right now. So, you can't really judge how good Oak Mountain's going to be the rest of the season from that game. That being said, this is a good chance for them to shore some things up, not just on that defensive side, but get some things going offensively. The offense the last 2 weeks has really struggled, so now they have a chance to kind of get things going again during this bye week. And who they get after the bye? At Hoover. So that's going to be a fun way to be welcomed back into action, and especially with a big region game like that. Yet again, I'll say, though, they have the type of team defensively and offensively that can control that kind of clock management, that kind of stuff, and really take a team down to the wire. They just couldn't put everything together against Thompson this past Friday night. Move on to Spain Park. Spain Park also 2 heartbreaking losses in a row. They fall to Mountain Brook this past Friday night, double overtime, 51-50 loss, as Mountain Brook goes for 2 in the second overtime after Spain Park had already scored, and they win that one by 1 point. The week before, it doesn't get much better for them. They fell 27-24 to Hoover in the final minutes. They had a chance late in that one as well, but Hoover ends up spoiling Spain Park's fun in that game as well. So back-to-back weeks of heartbreak. They need this to kind of mend that broken heart, get focused back on the season. Last year they let that loss to Hoover kind of affect them. They lose to Mountain Brook as well. So now they have a chance to get their mind right. They get Huffman after, and then they get a strong matchup, probably going to be a top 10 matchup with Thompson that following week after Huffman. So big week for those two teams to kind of get things shored up, get some rest, and get focused back on the second leg of the season as they have some big matchups coming up to end region play. So Helena's got another tough matchup this Friday night. They lose to Homewood 37-7 this past Friday in a game where they really couldn't get much going offensively besides throwing the ball to Justin Stuckey. Stuckey, a nice night, 144 yards, 1 touchdown through the air, and several, though. It was basically 4 catches for 144 yards, too. He just completely was able to go up and dominate for jump balls all night. Luke Steinbuch, he gets 3 interceptions on the night. I'm still impressed with what he's doing. He does have a strong arm, just a sophomore. The kid has been impressive. But this Friday night, they get a tough, stingy Vestavia team. Their defense has been lights out all season. Vestavia actually sits in third right now behind Thompson and Hoover in 7A Region 3, one of the toughest regions there is in the entire state. So, that unbalance of out of class, jumping up from 6A to 7A for Helena is going to be a bit of a jump. Last year, they lose this game 34-12. Vestavia's won 2 in a row. They just have some mojo and are clicking right now on both sides of the ball. So I think Vestavia is going to win this game. But yet again, it's a second straight week where Helena does not have a region game. So they can kind of get some things right, learn some things about their team, and make a run at the playoffs in the second half as they have some games that they could win. So big chance for them to gain some confidence this Friday night, but also a good chance to just kind of figure out where they are and what they can do moving forward. So Chelsea still searching for that first win after they fall 36-23 in a big region matchup with Pelham this past Friday night. They're struggling, to say the least, right now. That being said, the offense did make some strides this past week. They were down 23-7, scored 16 unanswered to tie that game with Pelham at 23 before Pelham scored the game's final 13 points to pull away late in that contest. So Chelsea's still got a lot of things to improve on. Their defense really hasn't been that bad this year, but they've just been on the field so much that they hadn't been able to rest and take a break and keep them in games as best they could. But now they get a Gardendale team they beat 38-21 last season, but Gardendale's coming off 3 wins in a row. They seem to have found themselves 3-2 overall. They've scored 53, 35, and 42 points in their last 3 games, so really seem to be clicking in all cylinders of the game at this point. Chelsea still trying to search for some things, find themselves, and I hate it for them. I love Coach Elmore. He's a great coach. And their team is still not a bad team. They're just they have a lot of struggle on the offensive side of the ball. It's just something that's tough to do in high school football when you lose 90% of your offense from the season before. So it's going to be a long year for Chelsea, but doesn't mean that they won't get things rebounded. They can't compete in some games down the stretch. I do like them to keep this game close if their offense finds that little clicking that they found last week when they scored 16 unanswered points. So this could be a game a lot closer than people expect. I know at some point Chelsea's going to win a game and they're going to shock somebody that they weren't expected to beat. So it could be this week, an out-of-region contest. They have a chance to pull off something, but right now Chelsea's struggling just a little too much. So before we dive in and talk about this Briarwood-Mortimer Jordan game, one of our bigger matchups actually this Friday night. First off, a congrats to head coach Fred Yancey. Last year he picked up his 250th win at Briarwood alone. This year, in a win last week over Fairfield, 23-6, he gets his 300th career victory overall coaching high school football. So big congrats to him, one of the greatest guys you will ever meet. I know I love chatting with him every time that I get to. So congrats, Coach Yancey. We appreciate everything you do for high school football, not only in this state or in this county, but in the entire state. And you've had an impact on so many lives. So we appreciate everything you have done. But now jumping in to a big matchup this Friday night for Coach Yancey and his Lion team, they get Mortimer Jordan. Mortimer Jordan has looked very good this year. They're 4-1 overall. They've won 3 in a row, I believe. So, they're playing good defensively the last few games. But Briarwood right now, just unreal how good they're playing defensively. They've given up 7, 14, 0, and 6 this year. That's good enough for an average of 6.8 points per game. So not even giving up a touchdown, just over a touchdown per game, but not letting the PAT be good. So Briarwood defensively right now, just unbelievable. And Michael Ayers he continues to make those strides. Offensively, they did struggle a little bit with fumbles this past week in their win over Fairfield. That being said, even though they turned the ball over several times, were able to get a 23-6 win. So they're in such a good spot right now. Easy consensus number 1 team in the 5A classification. They will have a tough contest this Friday night. It should be another defensive battle. These 2 teams met twice last year. As well. In the regular season, Briarwood wins 23-14. In the playoffs, they win 15-0. Both of those came on the road. This time they get a game at home with Mortimer Jordan. So it should be fun to see this one. A couple weeks ago, I expected a defensive battle as Briarwood took on number 5 Winona. They end up winning that one 34-0. So there's no telling what can happen, but right now I do expect a strong defensive game from both of these teams. But I just think Briarwood's too much, especially on the defensive side of the ball. They're going to get that extra edge and should be able to come out on top in this one in a big matchup for the Lions this Friday night. So this Calera-Jackson-Olin game this Friday night at Jackson-Olin is really one of our bigger matchups this Friday night in the county, besides the Briarwood-Mortimer Jordan game, simply because these 2 teams are really good teams. Now, there's a jump up from 5A to 6A for Calera in this game. That being said, Calera has looked really good this season. From that first game, they lose that one. They really should have won that one. Had their field goal kicker been healthy, they probably would have. But then they go on to reel off a few in a row before falling this past Friday night in a tough game to Demopolis. Hail Mary comes up short at the end. They lose 21-17. Now, if you can be impressed with a loss, that's one to be impressed with. They haven't played Demopolis that close in a very, very long time. And I give all the credit in the world to their defense for battling in that game and keeping them in it for the long haul, as well as their offense for never giving up and having a chance there at the end. So this Calera team, despite that loss, is playing good football this year. They've had some up and down moments. They struggled in a win over Central Tuscaloosa a couple weeks ago, but the 2 games before that looked really, really good. So I'm impressed with this Calera team. Jackson Nolan's a different animal, though. They're a 6A team, played really well. Their only loss has come to a ranked Homewood team in the 6A classification in a 28-6 game there. Last year, though, Calera loses this game 38-14 after losing the week before 38-13 to Demopolis. So it shows they're a little bit better and in a better spot despite the loss. I do worry, however, that that heartbreaking loss this past Friday night to Demopolis could still be on their minds. I know Coach Sal's going to get them ready to play and get their minds right and focused, but sometimes that starts to creep back in and really kills the team that next week. I mean, we saw it with Spain Park against Mountain Brook. We saw it with Oak Mountain against Thompson this past Friday night. So we'll see if they can bounce back. It's a tough game to bounce back with, but really nothing on the line. They can go out and give it their all and leave it all on the field as it's a non-region game, and they can bounce back into region play the rest of the season in games that they really should win the rest of the way. So still impressed. Not sure they'll be able to pull it off this Friday night, but a very good Calera team right now that I'm excited to see how they cap off the 2017 season. So we'll touch quickly on the Shelby County Wildcats. They lose 52-8 this past Friday night to Winona. Not exactly the outcome they wanted. That being said, this team had a big bounce-back win the week before in a 27-21 win over Moody. And this week they get an 0-4 Springville team. They're much better than Springville. Springville only averaging 8 points per game on the offensive side right now and giving up a ton of points as well. So Shelby County should be able to win this game, bounce back. They have some winnable games, some games they have to win in that second half. Speaking of teams like Fairfield, so on, that they're going to have to win if they want to make the playoffs this year. I think they can do it, but they can gain a lot of confidence this week in a game they really should win. Last year they only won this one 25-22. They need to win it a lot bigger this year to gain that confidence, and I think it can happen on Friday night. So I'm still not quite sure what to make of this Montevallo football team right now. They fall 42-34 this past week in overtime to Midfield. It's a trap game that I thought could happen just simply because Midfield came in 0-3, but the record didn't show just how tough their schedule had been. They had played 3 top 10 teams to start the season. So a very good Midfield team that Montevallo faced. Not a terrible loss for them. That being said, they're 2-2 on the season right now. And that 51-6 loss to American Christian and that loss this past Friday night to Midfield could really come into play when it comes to the playoffs. They're 1-2 in region play. Really need a big win this Friday night. Not a region game, but they get Bibb County for a team, so jumping up a classification. It's a game they won 37-27 last year. Bibb County comes in 3-1 on the season, a very good football team. So they could be a little bit too much for Montevallo, but I want to see them show that they can bounce back and show that they have some promise moving forward into the second half of region play because they're a good football team, and I expected a lot from them this season. I think they can get it all together. They can gain some confidence with a win this Friday night moving forward into that second leg of region play. So should be entertaining to see if they can bounce back. I expect them to at least keep this game close and have a chance, but that overtime loss last Friday could really play a factor in their focus and everything because I know that was heartbreaking. That being said, I know Coach Wilcox will get these guys ready. Should be an entertaining game between Montevallo and Bibb County this Friday night as the Bulldogs play just their second home game of the 2017 season. So I can't tell you how impressed I've been with Vincent so far this season. They've got their 2 toughest games out of the way in Lafayette and Lynette. I've said several times that they could reel off some wins after that, and they do it in a big way to start off. Just after that Lynette loss, they pick up a 38-7 win over Fayetteville. That's the game they lost 40-20 a season ago. This Friday night, they get 1A Summerton Christian, another very winnable game. Summerton Christian is 3-1, but that leap up to play a 2A team. Anytime you jump up a classification, unless you're a team like Maplesville in 1A, it's a tough jump. So Vincent comes into this game as a favorite, in my opinion. I think they can continue to reel off some wins the rest of the way. I still think they're 2-2 on the season. They hadn't won more than 1 game in the last 2 years combined. So I still think Vincent can get to 5 wins this year. I think they can make the playoffs. Non-region game this week, so it doesn't have anything to do with the playoffs, but a big chance for them to gain even more confidence. If they can win 2 games in a row, get to 3-2, above 500 on the season. Very big win. I love that the guys in the city are really passionate and behind this team right now, TPing head coach Wiley McKellar's house after the 2 wins this season. So a lot of passion there in Vincent right now. They're turning things around. I love this team this season, and I'm excited to see what they can do against Summerton Christian this Friday night. So it's getting a little bit ridiculous with how many talented players we have in Shelby County right now. I really think I'm going to have to change the name of this segment, change the name of our SCR Star of the Week, because there's so many stars that keep standing out. And while there's one team and a few players in particular that seem to jump off the page every week, there's just so many other guys that keep playing such good football. And before we get to our SCR Star of the Week, we're going to start with some standout performances. Chris Hardy, a guy that at Vincent that's just an unbelievable running back, 171 yards, 3 touchdowns for him, unbelievable performance. He had a strong hand in Vincent's win over Fayetteville as they cruise in that one. So very impressed by him so far this season, and excited to see what he can continue to do. He was one of the best performers this past Friday night in a strong game for Vincent. We also had Justin Stuckey, a loss to Homewood, 37-7 loss. He had 144 yards and a touchdown in that one. I think 2 or 3 receptions in that game at least went over 40 yards. So he was able to go up all night and grab the ball and come down with it. So good performance for him. That leads us to another good receiver at Spain Park High School. We have Jalen McMillan, was one of our stars last week. He had 7 catches for 97 yards. And it helps when you have a quarterback like Braxton Barker who continues to improve each week. I have been thoroughly impressed the last 2 weeks in both losses with how good his arm has been. His ground game's kind of left him as the running backs have struggled the last 2 weeks there for the Jags, but he goes off. He goes 22 of 28 for 311 yards and 3 touchdowns. So very strong performance. One of the best is the best quarterback performance of the week next to Talia Tagovailoa over at Thompson. So very impressive by him. Jay Sullins, another quarterback down at Montevallo, has a strong week. He goes off for 259 yards of total offense and 3 touchdowns in that game. So very impressive performance, and another loss there for Montevallo, but a big-time game for Sullins as he's slowly kind of getting into that quarterback role moving forward into the season. Also at Montevallo, Demetrius Smith, 16 tackles for him. Very impressive performance. I've been waiting for him to kind of step up a little bit. He's had great games this year, don't get me wrong, but been waiting for him to make his presence known like that. They fall in a tough overtime loss to Midfield, but those 2 guys, Sullins and Smith, really starting to up their game as the season moves along. Also, another repeat guy in the SCR Star of the Week. That's going to be Carson Eddy. He had another strong performance, his second 100-plus yard receiving performance of the season. He goes off 7 catches, 107 yards, 2 touchdowns. So very impressed by him. And the last one before we get to our Star of the Week, that's going to be Pelham. You know, I don't have their exact stats with me right now, but I do know that if they were able to beat Chelsea 36-23, put up 36 points offensively, then guys like Matthew Rye, who had to come out in the second half with shoulder soreness, as well as Dylan Peterson. I know he reeled off a 68-yard touchdown catch on a shuffle pass, and other guys like Edward Gibson, Nicholas Blackburn, and Brandon Sledge, as well as others, had strong performances for Pelham to be able to put up those kind of offensive numbers. But now to our SCR Star of the Week, and yet again, it's not just one guy, it's an entire team, and that's the Thompson Warriors. What they're doing right now, unbelievable, the numbers they're putting up. And it starts with the offense. You've got Talia Tagovailoa, another strong performance, 404 yards, 5 touchdowns in that win over Oak Mountain 49-14 this past Friday night. It helps when you have receivers like Mo Edwards and Ahmad Edwards. Ahmad goes off for 228 yards on 14 catches and a touchdown, while Mo has 129 yards and 2 touchdowns in that game. So just unbelievable performance from them alone. And Shadrack Bird, Joseph Ford, not quite the game they've had the last few weeks, but they also had strong performances. But we'll jump over to the defensive side of the ball for Thompson. Jalen Raheem, KJ Robertson, 2 guys that I've had my eye on this year. Not just solely them on the defense either. They've had help from other guys, but this past week, a great performance from each. Raheem led the team with 9 tackles, had a sack and an interception. Robertson also a sack and an interception with 4.5 tackles in that big win for the Thompson Warriors. So congrats to the entire Thompson team. It wouldn't be possible for them to be so strong offensively or defensively without help in the secondary on the defensive side and the defensive line as well. And then on the offensive line has been outstanding. And there's a couple of standout players in Mackie McNeil and Amari Kite there. But an entire team effort this past week from the Thompson Warriors. They've been unbelievable this season. And there was just no doubt that their entire team deserves some kudos after that win. Now, the second half of the season for the Warriors, it's going to be tough coming off of this game with Pelham on Friday night. They get 4 region games in a row, 3 of which on the road. They get Vestavia on the road, Spain Park on the road, and Hoover on the road. So there are 3 toughest games left, all on the road. So it should be interesting to see kind of how they handle that and if they're able to keep up this kind of momentum that they built early in the season. It's going to take a lot of focus, and they can't let their guard down with how well they've been playing. So congrats to all the Thompson players. Congrats to everybody for their strong performances this past week for all teams. It's been unbelievable. I have loved doing this every minute of it because it's really helped me dive in and see how impressive all these players have been this year, how impressive the teams have been, the improvements they've made. So everybody keep up the good work. If there's people I'm leaving off, please don't hesitate to let me know. I want to make sure everybody gets recognized. I love doing this, don't get me wrong, but I'm doing it so that I can bring as much recognition to the amazing players and teams that we have in Shelby County. So just everybody keep up the good work. I appreciate y'all tuning in this week. I've gotten a lot of positive feedback, especially from coaches, but I hope everybody has enjoyed watching these videos, and I hope that everybody has a fun Friday night. Be on the lookout. We'll be at Thompson Pelham for our Game of the Week with a Facebook Live video this Friday night. We'll also have all of our great coverage from our great coverage team that we have here at The Reporter as well. So I know I've gone on a long rant here. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up, but I appreciate everybody for tuning in and hope you'll stay tuned in the rest of the football season as we're now at the midway point and have 5 or 6 games left to go. So everybody, we're in for the long haul. It's going to be a fun stretch, and hope you guys will be excited for the rest of the season.